Good morning, afternoon or evening, wherever you are. I'm Paul Clark and welcome to my studio. Now, what have I got for you today? Well, we're going to have a go at this lovely little woodland scene with a reflection. Now this one's not too difficult and suitable for all levels and great fun as well. And this will probably be the last winter scene we do this year. A few of you mentioned that you're getting a little bit cold from all these snow scenes. So next week we'll do something completely different. So come and join me and we'll paint this step by step together. Okay, so for today's materials, my paper is some Saunders Waterford 300-pound rough, but any decent watercolour paper will do. My paints today is some cobalt blue, yellow ochre, Payne's grey, Dioxazine purple, but any purple will do, and some burnt sienna and some white gouache. 3 brushes from my range, number 12 round, number 6 round, and of course my number 3 trusty rigger. Okay, so no drawing template available today as it's nice and simple, limited pencil work needed, and there's also no photo reference as this is all just made up. And to start with, just a touch of masking fluid here on this fallen tree. Off we go. Now, wetting the sky area as usual with some clean water, and then dropping in wet in wet some yellow ochre, leaving a fairly white gap down in the centre here. Next, with a mix of cobalt blue, Dioxazine purple and Payne's grey, I'm painting in very roughly some simple tree shapes. And here is just some Payne's grey. And you can see these magical fir tree shapes just appear. This here is just some straight Dioxazine purple. And a touch more yellow ochre here. Now, re-wetting the bank here, using the line of the bank below and dropping in a mix of cobalt blue and Dioxazine purple along the bottoms, adding more and less of the purple as I go. And a little touch of yellow ochre. And I'm doing a very similar approach to all these other banks. Okay, so now we need to let this totally dry, so it's a perfect time for a short break and a glass of lovely hot spiced red wine. Oh, lovely. Next is one of my favourite things to do. I'm lightly spraying with this gardening spray bottle, the forest area. Now this type of bottle works better than the spritzer spray, which tends to give a very fine mist. Now this spray gives you thousands of tiny little droplets which will slightly fuzz the edges of the trees. Here I'm using some mix of cobalt blue and Payne's grey, and then dropping in some yellow ochre at the bottom. Now try and paint in these tree shapes with as minimum strokes as possible. Now using a number 12 brush helps to get this nice loose and simple shape. Here I'm just adding a touch of burnt sienna and a touch of Payne's grey for the shadow side, and a few more of the smaller details. I don't know, they could be bits of fallen trees or something like that. But now with the sharpened end of my wooden brush, I'm just scoring in a few details. Now you can see here, by spraying the paper first, it's created this lovely misty effect to some of the edges. And you can also see some of the nice granulation in the paint. And all this has happened by working quickly and not fiddling and muddying your washes. Now I know you're basically in the lap of the watercolour gods, but more often than not you'll be pleasantly surprised with what evolves if you just leave it. Here I'm re-wetting the river and dropping in some yellow ochre. Now comes the fun. Just try and match fairly accurately the colours above and paint in vertical bands of paint. And then I'm tipping my board to an angle of about 45 degrees to let the paint run down. Now all this must be done when that first wash is still wet. So you have to pre-mix your colours so you don't waste time, only to find out that your washes are already dried. Now here I'm using a mix of cobalt blue and Payne's grey into the damp river and along the bottom of all the banks. And just dabbing out here with a little piece of dry tissue to get that sense of light. So why not add in a few animal tracks? Could be a fox, squirrel, rabbit, kangaroo. Sorry, ignore that last one. Next, off with the masking fluid. And now with my trusty number 3 rigger and a mix of Payne's grey with just a little touch of burnt sienna, I'm putting in all the tree details. And I always say this brush is perfect for these little spindly branches.
escape. Bright lights, late nights. I couldn't see the forest for the trees. You showed me hide and seek, where finders keep. You found me looking like for a moment in time. You caught me.
Now you can see here, just before it dried, I gave a light spray to this bush, which has just softened the edges slightly and given this lovely fuzzy effect. But now I'm coming in with some strong Payne's Grey to sharpen and define a few little areas. Next, this time with my number 6 brush and a watery mix of Payne's Grey and Cobalt Blue, just a few simple ripples in the water.
And I couldn't see the forest for the trees. You showed me.
Next, with some white gouache or any white opaque medium will do, I'm just adding in a few highlights here and there.
You found me looking like for a moment in time. I know you caught me looking like for a moment in time. You caught me.
Now we're done. Now the painting works perfectly well as it is now, so if you're happy with it, you can leave it. But for those of you who want to add a little bit of falling snow, I'm going to be splatting in a more watery mix of the gouache and trying to get a consistent snowfall across the whole painting. And I think that should do it. Where's me hot wine? Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and you'll give it a go. As I said earlier, this one's great fun, not too complicated, a nice limited palette, and just splash around with the paint and let that lovely reflection, let it move down the page. So, as always, please don't forget to like, subscribe if you haven't already, leave a comment. I do read everyone. It is getting difficult to reply to all of them, but I try and answer all the questions anyway. So all have a great week, happy painting, and I look forward to seeing you all again next week for another Watercolour Wednesdays. Cheers now.